So let's take a look at a PragerU video.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's you're going to double that oh no in a second.
You may not realize it, but you are currently funding some dangerous people. They are indoctrinating young...
Yeah, we just talked about how we're funding some dangerous people. $716 billion military fucking budget.
Is that Kermit the Frog I hear? Why are there so many songs about rainbows?
And what's on the other side?
Clean your room, bucko.
No, Kermit. Go fuck yourself.
Come on!
minds throughout the West with their resentment-ridden ideology. They have made it their life's mission.
Yeah, because, Jordan Peterson's such a fucking ray of sunshine, But they're resentment.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen him? His presence just evokes light.
Yes, he's just the light bringer.
He looks like Gollum in a suit.
Oh, the light bringer, Jordan Peterson. Give me your wisdom.
Mission to undermine Western civilization itself, which they regard as corrupt, oppressive, and patriarchal.
I agree with the first two. And as little as 50 years ago, I would have agreed with the third one.
If you're a taxpayer or paying for your kid's liberal arts degree, you're underwriting this gang of nihilists.
A gang of nihilists? Look at him. He's starting to look more like the Crypt Keeper every time I see him, man.
Yeah, he's just the Crypt Keeper with a crew cut.
Pretty soon he's going to give his talks by popping up out of a coffin and going,
You know what? I'd be more likely to listen at that point. But now what do I know? I'm just one of the gang of nihilists, I mean, everything he doesn't like, he just slaps with the label nihilist, postmodernist, don't like it, nihilist, postmodernist.
Yeah.
Don't believe in Jesus. I bet you his room is fucking filthy.
You're supporting ideologues who claim that all truth is subjective, that all sex differences are so...
I mean, once again, it is. How can you claim to be any sort of serious intellectual mind if you think there's some objective fucking truth? Even science doesn't claim 100% objectivity. But you do, right?
Of course he does.
I mean, this motherfucker just thinks... I mean, you know what he means when he says objective truth is whatever his subjective opinions are, that must be the objective truth of
he's got
reality.
it figured out, though, because of the years of study and psychological treatment.
I'm more than a bit of a nihilist. I'm an outright fucking nihilist. I would tattoo nihilist to my goddamn forehead. He's like a motivational speaker for incels and potential school shooters. I don't know if I'd go quite that far, but I'd go near that far. Well, we got a lot to get through.
Socially constructed, and that Western imperialism is the sole source of all third world problems. They are the postmodernists, pushing progressive activism at a college near you.
Nihilist postmodernist, nihilist postmodernist, nihilist postmodernist, nihilist postmodernist, nihilist postmodernist, nihilist postmodernist, nihilist postmodernist.
I'm not the leader of the gang of nihilists. There wouldn't gang of nihilists is a stupid fucking concept. Okay? Nihilists don't we're the nihilist gang.
Not only that,
go team nihilist.
He tries to paint the opposition as people. These people don't exist. People that think that the third world is only a shithole, only because of the intervention of the Western world. Now, there's a lot of people that believe that was a huge factor in it. I'm one of them. But there are other problems going on in these things that aren't necessarily just exported from America or the Western world. And most people, so he's arguing against a tiny little sliver of SJWs who think that America is the source of all evil that ever existed.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, I saw Jordan Peterson in a debate with Matt Dillahunty where he claimed that people taking mushrooms and having mystical experiences was evidence of the supernatural realm. So if that's not if that's not at least based partially in a postmodern, like you obviously at that point are throwing science out the fucking window and just saying, nope, fuck that. So how is that not a postmodernist fucking thought, Jordan? Like, you obviously are getting rid of, like, you're the one who's denying quote unquote objective truth at that point and coming up with some other definition of true. In fact, the first time that Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris sat down for a conversation together, it was one of the most frustrating things I've ever attempted to watch, because the entire conversation was about them trying to come to some consensus about just basic reality.
Right.
And Jordan Peterson, his head is so full of just outright arbitrary nonsense that they couldn't even get past that.
It was kind of the same in the Dillahunty debate, too. They got mired up constantly, and they couldn't even define the terms, really, for most of the time that they talked, at least the parts that I watched.
And then Peterson tries to present him. I'm like, there's like a chapter in his book that's like about speaking so that others will understand you. And he's like the most inscrutable fuck ever.
He also talks about how to hold your shoulders back and sit up straight. You know, that's all part of it. And
his posture is terrible throughout.
He hunches over like
debate
Gollum during
Matt Dillahunty.
I mean, it's always like that if he's sitting down. He's always got some weird, you know, either kicked way back or hunched way forward.
Yeah, I mean, like, the point I'm trying to drive home is that, you know, whatever his education may be, he's not using the terms postmodernist and nihilist honestly.
Not at all.
I mean, he's basically saying them as just a dressed-up word for the little Kekistani kids running around calling everyone a cuck.
Yeah, it's the intellectual cuck.
Yeah.
You're the intellectual...
You're a postmodernist. You're a cuck.
Yeah.
You're a libtard.
Libtard, yeah. Conservatard.
They produced the mobs that violently shut down campus speakers, the language police who enshrine into law use of fabricated gender pronouns, and the deans whose livelihoods depend on madly rooting out discrimination, where little or none exists. Their thinking took hold in Western universities in the 60s and 70s, when the true believers of the radical left became the professors of today. And now we rack up education-related debt, not
a lot of them actually became neoconservatives.
So that our children learn to think critically, write clearly, or speak properly, but so they can...
What does that mean? What does that mean coming from you especially?
Model their mentor's destructive agenda. It's now possible to complete an English degree and never encounter Shakespeare, one of those dead white males whose works underlie our society of oppression.
Oppressor.
To understand and oppose the postmodernists, the ideas by which they orient themselves...
I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of English courses still include Shakespeare.
Yeah, and the vast majority of people that hold legitimate English degrees have read Shakespeare. So this is, once again, a nothing burger argument from him. Like, yeah, it might be theoretically possible to get through all your courses and get a BA in English without having to do anything on Shakespeare if you take the right courses, but most people ain't taking that path.
Must be clearly identified. First is their new unholy trinity of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
What
Diversity
horrible ideas.
Dun, dun, dun!
What horrible ideas.
Diversity, equity, inclusion. Dun, 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 dun. I'm scared, dude. I'm fucking terrified.
The unholy trinity.
Isn't diversity and inclusion kind of the same anyway?
All presided over by the master of darkness, world peace.
Not by opinion, but by race, ethnicity, or sexual identity.
Couldn't you have it? Couldn't you have diversity of all those things, though? Like, you could have...
Why not?
I mean, doesn't that just naturally happen as long as institutions aren't closed off to certain people?
Only if you're not trying to dishonestly frame your argument, TJ.
Oh, okay.
Equity is no longer the laudable goal of equality of opportunity, but the insistence on equality of outcome. And inclusion is the...
Citation needed. When did equity get a definition change?
I mean, he's one of these big anti-SJW fucks that sharpened his teeth on the anti-SJW bone. Don't the anti-SJW types like constantly fucking get mad about feminists trying to change definitions and social justice warriors trying to be like, this racism means this, it doesn't mean this anymore.
Yeah. It's
and yet
prejudice
here we have
plus power.
Jordan Peterson, like, equity, which no longer means this, but means this. It's like, what?
Well, he's trying to argue that the liberal idea of equity is no longer applied as, fairness, but is now applied as you're guaranteed this positive outcome, which may be true in some circumstances, but the term equity and advocating for equity is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and once again, where's the evidence that that's widespreadedly become the new definition?
It'd be hard to animate that into a slick little video, so.
I'm serious, though. I think if you ask most people about their concept of fairness, they're not going to tell you that the fairest thing is for everyone to just have the same outcome. Like, everybody wins or whatever. Yeah, there's people with that mentality, and a lot of them become, like, communists and shit. But, what percentage of the population are outright communists, outright socialists? Not a very huge percentage. Not really that significant.
Use of identity-based quote.
And by the way, when it comes to those people, you almost never see their ideas presented in the mainstream. Like, if I want to go find out what socialists and communists and shit are saying, I have to go out there and actually search for that. We don't have a whole lot of, like, here to discuss the issue is a Republican and a liberal and a communist and an anarchist. We almost never see those positions represented in mainstream fucking America. So this idea that that ideology has taken over is fucking just silly. It's absurd.
Well, I think his argument here is that those communists have taken over
the colleges.
The colleges.
Right.
Quotas to attain this misconceived state of equity. All the classic rights of the West are to be considered secondary to these new values. Take, for example, freedom of speech, the very pillar of democracy. The postmodernists refuse to believe that people of goodwill can exchange ideas and reach consensus. Their world is instead a Hobbesian nightmare of identity groups warring for power.
How is that nihilistic? That's the opposite of nihilistic. It seems like the opposite of postmodernist to me. It's definitely the opposite of nihilism, because nihilism is about tearing down any sort of existing power structure because everything is meaningless.
How is this not just an apt description of all the ideological divides in America right now, or in the Western world right now?
This idea that
this Hobbesian nightmare.
This idea that freedom of speech is besieged by the left and defended by the right is a fucking fantasy.
Always has been.
I've been reading a book lately. It's from 1992, but it's as relevant today as it ever was. It's called Freedom of Speech for Me, but Not for Thee. And it's all about how the left and the right both try to censor each other's freedom of speech in this fucking country. So this idea that freedom of speech is being defended by one side and attacked by the other is nonsense. And by the way, it seems to me kind of like in this video, like you're saying, these people shouldn't be allowed to think this way. Which, isn't that curtailing their freedom of speech? I think maybe we could make a case. I don't know. It depends on how far you want to go with your solution to this problem.
They don't see ideas that run contrary to their ideology as simply incorrect. They see them as integral to the oppressive system they wish to supplant, and consider it a moral obligation to stifle and constrain their expression. Second is rejection of the free market, of the very idea that free voluntary trading benefits everyone. They won't acknowledge that capitalism has lifted up hundreds of millions of people, so they can, for the first time in history.
Wow.
Why is this guy considered some sort of like great, new, different, refreshing voice again?
It's just the same old arguments.
How many times have we heard that fucking same argument?
A billion.
Like, they're against free trade. Look, I consider myself something of a capitalist. I like to make money. There's other situations.
Do you like to make money, or do you like to make money because money is necessary in society?
Obviously, the latter.
So then you're not really a capitalist then.
But I mean, I don't have a better fucking solution at this point. So, okay. Especially, I mean, like in some instances, yeah. I do a fucking service or whatever, create a good. You give me money to compensate me for it. All right, that seems kind of equitable. But why are we ignoring all of the victims of capitalism? It's like people like Jordan Peterson, they're so eager to talk about the victims of communism, which he won't even come out and say that word, even though what he's describing are fucking communists. But he won't come out. He'll come out and I'm sure, it's going to lead to this and it's going to lead to that. What about all the exploited victims of capitalism? What about the African slave children picking cocoa beans for your fucking Hershey bar? Or the fucking limbless kid who lost his fucking limbs in a mine collapse trying to get diamonds that you could put on your fat, gaudy bitch's fucking finger to let her know you love her.
The Guatemalan mother of 6 that works fucking 14 hours a day for pennies making your fucking running shoes. Where's your compassion for that, you know? Like, I would never argue that capitalism hasn't uplifted some lives. It certainly has. The question is always at what expense? And the answer to that is the third world.
Not even just the third world. I mean, people are exploited right here at home, too.
Of course.
You know? And I'm not some fucking foaming at the mouth anti-capitalist. But let's be honest about what capitalism is and what it's done. Has it done good things? Absolutely. Has it done shitty, horrible things? Absolutely. Should it probably be our system in 200 years? Probably not. And hopefully, as I said at the beginning of this show, technology will make it possible to escape that more than any sort of ideology will.
You're just a postmodernist, TJ.
I would say my nihilism score is at about 100 and my postmodernism score is like at 35, 40.
Nope. You're a postmodernist.
All right, whatever.
Afford food, shelter, clothing, transportation, even entertainment and travel. Those classified as poor in the U.S. and increasingly everywhere else are able to meet their basic needs. Meanwhile, in once prosperous Venezuela, until recently the poster child of the campus radicals, the middle class lines up for toilet paper. Third and finally are the...
Venezuela failed. So therefore, what? Unless someone around here is advocating, I want the exact system of Venezuela. If there's a bunch of pro-Venezuela people running around that are like, I want to emulate the political system of Venezuela in every way.
Oh, there have never been any capitalist nations like in, I don't know, Africa, for example, that have crumbled under the weight of their own fucking hypocrisy and corruption and shit. Nope.
I mean,
that's never happened. It's all just communism.
There's tons of countries that incorporate capitalism to one extent or another, and there's no really true Ayn Randian, totally free market country on the face of the earth. But to whatever extent, a ton of countries have capitalism. In fact, most countries do. And, you know, some of them are successful and others are not. Kind of just like in an actual capitalist country, there's winners and there's losers. And there's usually a lot of losers. And this middle class concept that they've created is a total fucking illusion. You know, when the richest people have millions or billions of dollars and the poorest people are getting by on like, you know, $9,000, $10,000, $11,000 a year, and that doesn't mean that the average person making like, I don't know, $32,000 or $33,000 a year or whatever the fuck the number is, that doesn't put them in the middle. That puts them considerably towards the bottom.
Arguing with these free market dudes is one of the most frustrating fucking things in the world to do, isn't it? Because, like, they believe it's an entity. And I can tell that Jordan Peterson is one of those people. He thinks that the free market capitalism is going to save the world.
I mean, honestly, he's just as naive as the commie pinko cocksuckers that he hates. Because
exactly.
I was like I said earlier, I was looking at some socialist forums and shit. And I detected within them the same sort of absolute naivete about what human nature is and how it works. And I feel like people like Jordan Peterson just think that they just have this idealized version of capitalism where all it is like when people have a need, someone will provide for that need for monetary compensation. And that's why it's always good.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to capitalism than that. And the socialists kind of have a similar simplistic, delusional fucking fantasy about, well, if we just treat everyone equal and get rid of the social hierarchy and it's just going to be everyone's going to own the fruits of everything and we're all just going to own everything together as a collective and it's going to be beautiful. Like, that's not going to work. Neither of these ideas works. Not on their own. Not in a purist sense. Can you tinker around and put some stuff in place? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so far, no one's quite figured out the magic recipe for here's how you get an idealized utopian human society. I think there's a strong possibility that it's completely fucking impossible.
I think that capitalism, in comparison to previous social orders that came before it, like feudalism and shit, is a huge step in the right direction.
You are totally misrepresenting free market capitalism.
No,
well,
I'm not.
I've
As I'm sitting here fucking extolling the virtues of it versus, other more fucking ancient systems of economic exploitation.
I've read Ayn Rand. That's my basis.
Your average person under capitalism has way more freedom of movement and expression than your average peasant under feudalism did. So capitalism is a giant step in the correct direction. But to say that it is the end-all, be-all, end journey of human fucking economic systems is just short-sighted and stupid. Some of the principles of capitalism might be used in a far-flung future society. You know what I mean? We might see, like, currency used, but it's different. It's not something that's withheld from people. It's something that's given to people who give to society.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's move on with this.
Politics of identity. Postmodernists don't believe in individuals. You're an exemplar of your race, sex, or sexual preference.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like they just want to be this superficial thing, like their race or their sexual preference or their gender. It's kind of like if you just look at someone you don't like and just label them a postmodernist so you can dismiss everything they say.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, like this oversimplified thing. See what I'm saying?
You're also either a victim or an oppressor. No wrong can be done by anyone in the former group.
Which one are you, Jordan? I mean, it kind of seems to me like as you're bitching about these people, they just simplify everything to victim and oppressor. Aren't you playing a fucking victim here?
Oh, he definitely is.
Oh my God, did you know your tax dollars are funding this horrible stuff? Of all the things my tax dollars fund, lefty professors is pretty low on my hierarchy of fucking concerns. Because the shit that my government engages in, like private prisons.
Yeah, pull up that last story real quick again.
Senate passes fucking...
Yeah, check that out.
$716 billion defense bill.
This is a little bit higher on my give a fuck meter than some liberal fucking super left professor.
Now, are there professors that are way to the left?
Yes.
Yes. Do some of them go farther than I would go? Probably a lot do. But you know what? Earlier in this video, you were extolling the value of freedom of speech, weren't you? Like, shouldn't we have lefty professors? Shouldn't we have fucking far-right professors and all kinds of people in between? Like, isn't that the reason that there's different colleges with different philosophies? There's Christian colleges. If you want to go learn about how Jesus done it, You could go there and learn that shit.
Well, he's talking about public universities.
Yeah, but I'm whatever channels. Just like he was also talking about tuition in there. He was saying, like, if you pay your tuition, it's going to do that. So it's not even just taxes, but if you're paying your kids tuition to go to college, just know that they're being brainwashed by these far-left professors. Well, then don't send them to a fucking far-left school then. Go send them to conservative bullshit university if you want. And it's not like, I mean, Jordan Peterson is a professor, right?
Yeah, but he's
been a professor for many years.
Professor TJ.
He's been a professor for many years. He hasn't been fired for his views.
I mean, the truth
There's
is
sexual
that
assault allegations against him, and he wasn't fucking fired.
The truth is that there are professors that are all over the political spectrum at most colleges, not just super lefty liberal ones. And the effect that they have on the students is usually predicated by the effect the parents have had on those kids before those professors ever got to them. If you're going into a super liberal lefty class and you leave that class with a new fervor for that type of thought, you were prepared for that by your parents. So the parents are really at fault here, not the educators, especially college professors who you have for what, like 2 semesters, if that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like...
I mean, look, I don't have much direct experience with college because I never went.
Right.
But I watch a lot of fucking college lectures on YouTube. I listen to a lot of, like, college courses on Audible and shit. And, you know, do I see some of this far left shit he's talking about? Yeah. But... Is it anywhere near as omnipresent as he's making it out to be here?
Absolutely not.
And the fact that he is a fucking tenured professor in Canada
is like a refutation of his argument.
Yeah. Because he hasn't been fired. They haven't been like, ooh, you're promoting ideas that we don't agree with, so you're gone.
It's just another conservative tempest in a teapot.
And no good by the latter.
Okay.
Such ideas of victimization do nothing but justify the use of power and engender intergroup conflict. All these concepts originated with Karl Marx, the 19th century German philosopher. Marx viewed the world as a gigantic class struggle, the bourgeoisie against the proletariat, the grasping rich against the desperate poor. But wherever his ideas were put into practice, in the Soviet Union, China, Vietnam,
there's a bait and switch that just happened right there. Because you're conflating Karl Marx's criticisms of capitalism with his proposed solutions being implemented. Just because his solutions to the problem didn't work, it doesn't mean that his identifying the problem was inaccurate.
Yeah.
Sorry. Nice bait and switch. You almost got away with it, but nope.
Cambodia, to name just a few, whole economies failed and tens of millions were killed. We fought a decades-long Cold War to stop the spread of those murderous notions.
Wait a minute, what countries was he talking about? Cambodia?
Yeah, Cambodia, and now he's talking about the Soviet Union.
Oh, yeah, that had nothing to do with intervention from the outside world either.
Oh, you're one of these crazy nihilists.
Yeah, the collapse of those countries was 100% predicated on their economic system. It had nothing to do with Cold Wars or economic sanctions or hot wars nearby to their country. It had nothing to do with those governments collapsing into total chaos and greed.
You misrepresented what Jordan Peterson said about mushrooms. He said it wasn't evidence of the supernatural. No, he did. Go back and watch again. I'm always glad to hear about how he's being misrepresented. Look, if he's this misrepresented and this misunderstood, then he's obviously needs to examine the rules of his own book.
Clarify your speech a little bit.
Because he tells people to speak clearly so they can be understood. He obviously fails at that gargantuanly. So, and yeah, I mean, like, it's explicitly asked of him in that debate by Matt Dillahunty. So you're saying this proves the supernatural. And of course, he doesn't give a direct answer to that. But the gibberish that comes out of his mouth would lead you to believe that that's what he believes.
Oh, for sure.
So whatever. Go fuck yourself, you Jordan Peterson apologist.
In the new guise of identity politics. The corrupt ideas of the postmodern neo-Marxists should be consigned to the dustbin of history.
But wouldn't that be
Instead,
anti-free speech?
we underwrite their
What an
continuance
electrifying
in the
speaker.
very institutions where the central ideas of
The terrible ideas of the neo-Marxist postmodernists should be consigned to the dustbin of history. Look at me. He looks like he's about to fucking fall asleep and into a Xanax coma or some shit. Like, he looks like he's horrible. Like he's not happy to be where he is. Look at him. He's got no how is this dude a famous speaker? The terrible ideas of the postmodernist
The
neo-Marxists.
incels really like it. Something about looking at this man's eyes and being like, I could tell he doesn't get laid just like me.
How can
But
you look
at what
into
he's
his eyes?
accomplished."
His droopy fucking brows cover him.
Shut up, Paul. I just saw the light go on in your eyes.
The postmodernist neo-Marxists should be consigned to the dustbin of history.
West should be transmitted across the generations. Unless we stop, postmodernism will do to America and the entire Western world what it's already done to its universities.
Just say communist.
I'm Jordan Peterson, professor of psychology at the University.
I mean, all postmodernism means is being highly skeptical of everything, including the nature of reality itself. And you should be skeptical of that. If you take a course in critical thinking, they will tell you to be skeptical of that.
Oh.
Because what you see and perceive around you is just something your brain is assembling based on its sensory data. You don't have some clear view of what's really happening around you at any given time. It's just a composite picture constructed by your brain. What the fuck does that have to do with any of the bullshit you're talking about? You imbecile. This man is not an intellectual. He is a fucking huckster. He's a fucking fraud.
Yep. He definitely reeks of ulterior motives. Just another fucking conservative. Just another social conservative trying to dress his ideas up because he knows that, you know, the fucking younger generation is skewing liberal, as it always does.
This is cringeworthy. Do these guys have any real arguments and not just skewering things to absurdity?
Skewing things? Look, dude, making fun of his appearance and shit? I'm not allowed to inject a little bit of humor.
Well, he said
and
we
shit?
made no arguments.
What?
Throughout the entire review of this video, we made no arguments.
It's
whatsoever.
a 5-minute video that took us like 40 minutes to get through because we paused it and offered counter arguments.
But they were all straw men, though.
Yeah.
Because he is Jordan Peterson, the chosen one. Oh. Shut up. YouTube makes it hard for creators to make money on this platform, so I appreciate your support through PayPal or through Patreon. Links to both can be found below in the description section for this video. And once again, thank you.